Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Search, Deploy, Commit, the unofficial Warzone podcast. And I'm here with Cursona, the host of, what are we, 6 Warzone Awards?
Five.
Five.
And I was more of a co-host for some of them, but shout out to Absolute Ethan, or Ethan, for always helping me out with all those over the years. But I think the last one was technically the one where it was just me. But yes, 5, which is pretty crazy to say because sometimes I don't realize it. I'm like, yeah, we did 5.
You did 5. Yeah, right. And so happy to have you on and be a part of the show. We had planned this, so long ago, and now to be back on it together is a treat. So thank you so much.
No, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. And what have you been up to? I think maybe some people haven't seen you in a bit, but what's kind of kept you busy in the interim?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm always doing a lot of stuff both online and offline in my personal life. People who know me, personally, they know that I'm very regimented in a way where like I always feel like I have stuff going on. I'm always doing stuff. I'm always having, doing fun stuff, of course. But still I have a full-time job, 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
I'm 29 years old at this point, so I have adult responsibilities, so that takes up time. And I live in Colorado, so sometimes I do a lot of stuff that, a little bit later in the night for East Coasters and European time. So that also affects maybe folks, who follow me on Twitch or watch some of the YouTube stuff I've done with Sonic Movie Show. Ethan and I's podcast that we've done for 4 or 5 years now. Also as long as it feels like I did the Warzone Awards. So I don't know, there's a lot of things I've been doing, like creatively. I would say in the last year and a half, though, I think after the Warzone Awards 5, I kind of felt like I needed to kind of just take a step back and just realize kind of figure out what I really want to do. So I've been I think for the last year and a half, really just been kind of just doing whatever I want to do and not being so focused on, as much as I said I'm regimented, I still am very much so, but I've been trying to like dial that back a little bit and just kind of go with the flow.
Cool.
Enjoy life. I think the pandemic, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, where it felt like it flew by. And while I'm sure I did a lot of things and a lot of Twitch streams and Warzone Awards, of course, it still flew by for me. So I'm trying to like slow down a bit, enjoy the last 6 months of my 20s here before I hit the big old 3-0. So I'm kind of just been doing a lot of different things. Yeah, Twitch. I've been actually getting more into music. That's been really exciting for me. It's something I've always wanted to do when I was younger. Always wanted to be in like a metal band or something. So I've been doing that very still casually, but putting more time into that. And doing podcasting, Sonic Movie Show, then the occasional Twitch stream. Most of the time it's just been Counter-Strike as of the last probably 6 to 8 months. So
yeah, I noticed that. And obviously we want to talk about Warzone, but I think it's interesting how I think games are a part of who we are, and our personalities tend to lend themselves to certain things. And I think it's interesting how Warzone kind of pulls even further on the players, in that it really you find yourself in a certain niche that really grabs your attention. And for you, it was the Warzone Awards, but I kind of want to take us on like your initial, like, how did you get started in Warzone and then slowly progress into that? So I guess what got you started in Warzone? Did somebody invite you? Did you find it online somewhere?
Yeah, so Ethan, who I've mentioned a couple times now, and our other friend David, we've been friends since 5th and 6th grade. So we've, pretty much we've grown up with each other at this point. And this is I want to say 2013, the fall of 2013. We're both all three of us were in going to college. I went out of state. Ethan and David stayed in upstate New York. I went out of state to Pennsylvania, but we still, connected over at the time Skype. This is before Discord, folks, and and all those kind of things. So we were using Skype for a little bit, and then Google came out with Google Hangouts. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
Once again, I'm kind of dating myself here a little bit.
No.
But,
yes,
but yeah,
that's not that old. No. You're good.
I know there's some
Everybody
folks who might
uses
listen to this who are like, "What the hell is Google Hangouts?" But yeah, Google Hangouts. We started using that a lot while we were gaming. So we played a lot of like Rust and whatnot. But in Google Hangouts, there was different applications in it, different games. Like I don't even remember what the other ones were, but some of them were better than others. But one of them was Warlight, which just had like 4 or 5 basic maps on it. I think Small Earth was the main one, if I remember correctly. And basically we just played that one night, and then I don't remember who. I think it was Ethan. I don't know. But one of us found out like, oh, this is an actual game, like a browser game. We're like, oh, let's go check it out. So we kind of just naturally fell into it that way. I just started, going on there, and then Ethan kind of discovered that you can make your own maps and whatnot, and so that's how I know how he kind of got into map making. And then we just kept playing it off and on. We weren't playing it like every day, but off and on. When we were maybe not playing other games, we go on there. Then at one point we got into doing making a clan on there. Warlight MSF was based off, I believe, Metal Gear that Ethan made, and we started doing like streaming. This is still early Twitch too. Like I was still just learning what the heck Twitch was. I learned about Twitch through Twitch Plays Pokemon. So this whole idea of live streaming was new to me. But we were doing that, and we just did kind of hangouts on there. And fast forward a couple more years, off and on once again playing Warlight, then Warzone, and then I started doing my own Twitch stuff around 2017, and that's when I started doing the Warhole streams, which was just a dumb name that we came up with because it was at the time when the name was changing, and my joke rebrand was actually Warhole, and I thought that sounded better. Obviously, I was joking at the time, but I just stuck with it and rolled and made that kind of like a stream. I did do that for a lot. Then I started to get burnt out on it quite a bit. And then, what
do you think was different about that, like in comparison to Warzone Awards, that made you burn out?
I think I was just doing it too much. And I think I hate to say this too, because that makes it seem like I was against it, but I think it was a great game mode. But like quick play, when that was quick match or whatever it's called, came in, that like killed I feel like open games for me, because that's where I lived, right?
Interesting.
The whole point of the Warhole would be different from the other streamers at the time. Was we would play on the goofy map and what we called the bad maps that weren't well made, or maybe were just obnoxious, and we'd do multi-attack with a million cards, or we just find up random settings to make it you're just not I didn't play it mostly for the strategy. It was more like, this is a fun place to just hang out,
sure.
Shoot the crap a little bit, and just find these maps, because there was hundreds and hundreds of maps,
Oh
and I felt like there was always new ones coming at the time, every week. So it was like, okay, what new ones are out? Can we play those? And then, or if Ethan made one, we'd play on that. We'd do like 20 or so player games and whatnot. But when quick play came, it kind of, people were like going to that because they don't want to sit and wait in a lobby, which I get. But then less people, I feel like, were interested in playing on the, these random maps that weren't the best or weren't even fair necessarily.
Sure.
Because some people worry about their 1v1 or
Yeah.
their win rate, and I'm like, my win rate's 30%. I don't care.
It was
I'm
getting
not
very
good at this game.
competitive, right?
Yeah. I would usually lose too because people would be stream sniping. Not that I'm good, like I said, but
Sure.
But yeah, it was a fun kind of thing, and yeah, and Ethan and David sometimes would come on. We do different like little game shows in it where Ethan would make up fake maps, and we have to guess if they're real or fake, which we did a little bit in the Warzone Awards. So yeah, there's a lot of just kind of old school Twitch streaming there where people are just hanging out, finding
Talking.
community and talking, and playing on these weird maps.
That's cool. And I was looking at your profile. You actually have a couple maps that you made. You got to talk to me about these maps.
Yeah,
we need an explanation. I try and get everywhere I can. We got to talk about these.
Yeah, so Ethan was trying to show me how to make maps, and that first one, So Deep, was a practice one, really, with random shapes and other maybe suggestive imagery. Can't say for sure. Gotta remember this is 2014 when that one came out.
Right.
So yeah, that's there. And then I decided to make a second one in 2019 and do kind of a self-portrait, which was also my first time kind of showing my face on camera for streaming. So I kind of used it as a more creative way than doing,
nice.
Oh my God, everyone look at me. I didn't want to make a whole thing about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do this. And once again, tried my best, not very good because I had to relearn everything.
Sure.
But I realized this, or someone pointed out to me that both those maps came out on November 26th.
Wow.
Coincidentally.
The same date.
And that wasn't on purpose. That just happened to work out that way.
Wow.
But then Ethan's told me, he's like, hey man, you should do it again because it's a 5-year gap. You should do it again in 5 years. And I'm like, okay. And that'll be this year. So,
oh my gosh.
Like I said, I've kind of, or I don't know if I mentioned it on air yet, but yeah, I've been kind of taking a break from Warzone after the Warzone Awards. I did play some tournaments and whatnot last year, but I haven't played it at all this year to my knowledge. But I think I'll be back to at least make a third map. Probably my last one because I can't commit to the bit. I don't know in 5 years for sure.
We'll see. You're on a trend. I think that's pretty cool, right? If you can actually nail that.
So I have to have it ready
pretty cool.
by November 25th, 24th, maybe.
You got time.
Maybe hit up
in the
Fizzer.
time of this recording, you'll be set.
So, but the thing is, I don't even know what I'm going to do because both times I just went into it with no objective outside of the portrait. That was like what I thought of like an hour before I made that. So
Sure.
I'm going in with, once again, no expectations, and we'll see what comes out of it.
Nice. I love it. And I want to ask you, because I mean, obviously I think Warzone is unique and some people really, really commit themselves. I mean, I think you're definitely a committed player. You've been playing it for a very long time. I mean, you have nearly 4,000 games logged in multiplayer.
Oh my gosh.
And I think, well, but I mean, you've played for a long time, and
yes.
I would be willing to bet that, you know, the pros, the competitive players probably have even more, but it's, you know, the nature of this game is interesting that you can spend as much time in it as you want, right?
Right.
How do you see Warzone? Like, you even talked about it in your initial, like how you guys got started with it. It was just a place to hang out and talk while you were having fun with the game. You know, how do you think Warzone lends to itself in that way in comparison to maybe other stuff where you can kind of come and go and it's almost like nothing's changed, right? That's kind of how I see it anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's a couple of games that, you know, I've gone to with my friends. I mentioned Counter-Strike. That is what I play almost every Friday night. We have a fake season where we, you know, we keep track of our wins and losses to make it, you know, entertaining for ourselves, even though no one cares. But we pretend to care, you know, we're like, oh my gosh, we need to get to 100 wins before 100 losses. But like, yeah, Warzone to me was like I've met there's people I still talk to, on Discord and whatnot, or whenever I do occasionally get back into Warzone streaming or whatever, there's people I've met, I've talked to for many years now. To me, gaming and just the internet in general, the pros of these things for sure are, being able to find community, and maybe where you might not be able to find that in the real world. I think is super cool. Like I said, there's people I talk to who are from Europe. I remember one time during one of the streams, we were playing with someone who was from like Australia, and that just like blew my mind. Just like, yeah, you see it like in their icon, they're from whatever country, but like being able to actually like talk to them like in that moment, and like, or riff off some goofy joke or whatever, like, to me that's awesome. That's I think that's why I've always gravitated to streaming, maybe not all the time for creative purposes, but also just as a way to just connect with people who I might not be able to interact with IRL in the flesh.
Yeah.
So I hope Warzone keeps growing in terms of in terms of its community, and hopefully there's other people out there who can find. I know there has been, right? We have clans and whatnot, but I hope people maybe can continue to find community through Warzone, and you never know. I mean, I've met people through gaming that I didn't know in real life until I met them, or I played games with them, and then I would meet up with them after how many years, and seeing them in person and whatnot is like kind of crazy to think about, but it's like super cool. So I guess hope that made sense. But
no, that's great. I mean, and that's kind of what I was looking for, is just kind of your take. And I think it's interesting to get people's perspective on, how things have changed, and how people connect and, use this game, which is really a unique space. So, but obviously I think the big thing that I want to talk to you about is Warzone Awards. Okay. And I think everybody else is probably wondering, why have we not gotten there yet? And how did you start doing that? I mean, in some ways, I think your answer is going to sound a lot like the reason why I started doing my podcast, but I want to let you put it in your own terms. How did you come up with this idea and want to start putting in the effort to do that?
Well, like a lot of things that Ethan and I do, for not just Warzone, but just online, sometimes we think of an idea and we try it and see if it works. And then sometimes we commit to the bit, maybe too long, for better or for worse. It really was a joke idea at first, I'll be honest. Like, it was kind of it was 2017, I think was the first one, maybe 2018. Where like we've seen people do like stuff in the forums where like, we give out awards for the year. And I think it was like, I don't remember. I can't give you the exact like how it went down, but it was very much it'd be kind of cool if we did our own award show, like with, a whole presentation, like live, and people could vote on it, but we're like the hosts, this is me and Ethan talking about it. And then we're like, we can make it kind of like the Game Awards, right? Like, or the Oscars, Grammys, any of those, but make it more comedic in nature. I don't know. We just kind of started doing it, and the first time we did it, which is real bad, please don't watch that one, unless you just want to.
Everybody go watch
see how far
right
it's come.
Now.
Yeah, everyone go watch it right now. Because we actually did do it live, as opposed to all the ones after that where it was pre-recorded, but presented live. Because at that point we're like, it doesn't matter, and we realized we weren't very good at off the cuff talking about nominees, and and that's what made it more of. We're like, it's not that serious, but we did it, and some people talked about it. I wouldn't say it was like a huge roaring success, but enough people talked about it, and then we're like, let's try it again next year, but like, let's really try more than not just wing it like 2 weeks before, where Ethan made just some of the graphics. And then like we wrote, we did kind of I did more of the back end, like people can vote, people can nominate, those kind of things. And we had like a loose notes, but like, we weren't doing it was very much first time us doing something like that. So, and I guess I'll be my thing to anyone who wants to do creative things. Don't be afraid to try something. And then if it's quote unquote cringy or whatever, like, hey, at least you try and then you can improve on it next time. That's the lesson that we took from that first one. And yeah, we started just every year, doing more and more. And I think it was around the third one where we really started like writing a script out, like, 15, 20 page scripts.
Yeah.
A lot more work. I did a lot of video editing. Ethan would do all the graphics. And the one that was 2020 was definitely the hardest one to pull off, just because pandemic stress of all that happening, like right as like the main push for like actually having to make things happened. And yeah, it was just like becoming bigger and bigger, so expectations are higher and higher. And yeah, like I took off from work to like make the fourth one and the fifth one. Like more so, yeah, I think actually in the fourth one I took a whole week off, and then the fifth, because I had extra PTO, and with COVID, where else was I gonna go?
Yeah,
so,
right, it's true.
So yeah, I mean, it just started to build up on top of each other. I think the fifth one though, that is my last one.
Sure.
But I feel like it was a good one to end on. Like I put everything I could into it with the time frame I had.
Yep.
And, first time trying out green screens to all right effects. But yeah, that was the one where, I took full, kind of creative control on it. And then so I did, because Ethan stepped back, it was a big time commitment and whatnot. So, so I did, I had to, do more there. But then also that year before that one is when I moved to Colorado. So it was a big like life change for me.
Yeah.
And then I usually write the script in winter. And then usually I get seasonal depression in the wintertime. So they add that into it. And yeah, that's what Warzone Awards 5 came out to be, but it did feel really good because I've always wanted to do, I think that was the end goal for me for Warzone Awards, was to make it look like that. Where, there's a visual to it where you can see, you can see the hosts, you can see there's animation to it. There's, I wanted to be as best I can to get to these $1 million, award shows, production, so I know it's not perfect. There's a lot of things that I wish I could have done better, wish I had more time on, of course, but Warzone Awards 5 was definitely like kind of a good way to, I feel like, send it off. And I've always said someone else can try to take a stab at it. I'm happy to like loosely help. I just won't be doing any video editing. If people want to see how much time that takes, you can watch. I did a kind of behind the scenes a year later for the Warzone Awards 5 to kind of showcase how intricate it is, more than a lot of people didn't realize.
It's such amount of work. I mean, and I've done video editing for a fair amount of time, and the amount of effort that you've put into these Warzone Awards is quite impressive. And I think I first found your Warzone Awards about 3 years ago from the time of this recording, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is the real deal. Like this is an hour plus, sometimes 2 hour show. I mean, this is like, these guys aren't messing around. I was just so impressed. And so I wanted to talk to you about it. I mean, I think the amount of time and effort just in each of the shots, for all the awards, right? You have to do the nominees. You got to come up with visuals for all of it. You got to put the text in for everything. I mean, that's a lot of work, especially when you're doing it digitally. Those people aren't actually there. You have to put all that text in. It's a lot of work.
I mean, and that's, once again, I always want to say, I'm forever thankful for like Ethan, for doing 4 out of 5 of them with me, and then I had my cousin actually do a lot of the visuals for the 5th one, like all the spaceship stuff. Like I just pitched her the idea. I'm like, because she went to school for digital art, and like
Wow.
I'm like, I maybe could do some of this stuff, but not at the time frame of which I need to get this done. So like I pitched her the idea, and like she just knocked it out of the park. But yeah, Ethan did all the logos all the past years, and all like the visuals you see, the backdrops, everything.
Yep.
Like they did a lot, to help get that visual. I was more of just kind of the person, editing, putting it together. But yeah, like to me, like the hardest part was always the script, because I just feel like I can only say what this nominee is about so many different ways after a while. That was always a tough kind of thing for me to do. And then reading lines off is a lot harder than you'd think. Like, I've done how many years of podcasting and Twitch streaming. Reading off a script is like the hardest thing. I have huge respect for actors who can just remember everything and just knock it out of the park. If I had it my way, I would just hired another person
to read it.
That would have been
nice,
better. But yeah, I mean, I can sit here all day telling you all the different little nuances and stories of the Warzone Awards. But yeah, I'm just thankful for everyone who's helped make that project, everyone who's voted, and nominated people. I had a committee of people help with like the more competitive side of Warzone. Also, I need to thank like my girlfriend Bryn, because every January is her birthday, and a lot of times the Warzone Awards, like prime crunch time, was right around then, and she's always been, for all my creative stuff, just always been, letting me do those things and taking that time to work on those things. So like there's a lot of people who, it isn't just me, there's a lot of people who have helped me able to do these big things. But yeah, it is definitely a lot. I think I've always said it takes about 100 or so like working hours. And it's just
a lot
out of the will to do it. So I mean, no regrets for sure.
That's what any of this is, right? I think everybody's finding their creative passion, and for you, it was making this show. And I know you have tons of stories, but I mean, is there any, maybe the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of the Warzone Awards, like a moment? Maybe it was during a live show, or maybe it was an award winner that maybe just stood out to you. Obviously, there's tons of stories to tell, but if you could only pick one, and maybe the first one that comes to your mind, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it was just like, I forget what their name is. I'm so sorry, I don't remember their name, but there was one person like for Warzone Awards 5 who was in the chat like an hour before, just writing how hyped they were for Warzone Awards 5, and like because they liked the 4th one so much. And I'm like, damn, someone out there is spending time out of their day to be here an hour early. It felt like, I don't know, like if you're in a band or something, like someone waiting out in line all day to see you, like that. Yeah. That I can't really describe what that's like. But then there's also that pressure of like, man, well, I hope they like it.
Got to put on a good show.
Yeah, I put on a good show.
That's cool.
But yeah, I think those kind of little moments where like, or the people who told me like, oh, that was amazing and whatnot. Like those, if I made their day for even a couple hours, especially during 2020 Warzone Awards 4, which was our highest viewed one. I think it was over 250 people watching it. Shout out to Fizzer. I forgot to shout him out because he's the one who would put the alert up on the website to say, hey, the show is live.
Nice.
Kind of making it more official. But yeah, like I think, seeing 250 people, and like when the world really, really was sucking, no one knew what the future was at that time. Having that moment, I guess, was pretty cool. Like every time or last couple Warzone Awards, I can't describe the anxiety, both good and bad, like in that 2 hours. It's like a very euphoric almost feeling where you're like, okay, wow, thank God it's done.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Some people are liking it, or okay. And then, it's kind of just like, and then all of a sudden it's over and you're like, okay, that's it,
That's it. Yeah, sure.
So yeah, I guess it's more of just people's reactions to it. I mean, that's
Hmm.
what I feel like as, creative people, you know, we want to, whatever our art is trying to do, then, trying to entertain people, or whether it's in a positive, negative way, whatever it is,
Right.
that's I feel like our job, right, is to entertain or make people think about things. That was definitely Warzone Awards 5's kind of message, or at least kind of my self-reflection of, mental health and whatnot. And people took that away, and that was like, hey, cool, I did the thing I was trying to do, and people understood that.
That's
So
awesome.
that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you set out to do what you wanted to do, and I think that's, as a creative, I think that's a lot of what, the ultimate goal is to have other people see and recognize that, right? Like that one person that was there waiting, like that meant the world to you, and that's
Yeah, it
awesome.
really did.
And I want to kind of ask, I don't know if you've ever sat down and just kind of gone through all of it, from start to finish, and like looking back, do you feel that after the fifth one that, maybe there was a sense of pressure to continue on, or maybe, did you feel any of that in not continuing to do it, even if it wasn't maybe said by anybody? Did you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, there was, I mean, I think going into the fifth one, I was like, fourth one was just really like time consuming, like stressful on my brain, my body. And while I liked doing it, I liked the end product. I just knew I couldn't do this forever outside of, if I didn't have a job, I don't have other
Yeah,
life
right.
responsibilities. Like, sure, if the 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 cards fell in a way where I just don't work from October to February to maybe work on this and really like, do a whole thing and produce it even more,
Hmm.
sure. Maybe I'd think about it, but because it wasn't like I didn't want to do it anymore. It's more of just like, yeah, I wanted to keep doing better and better, but it just that, yeah, kind of what you said, where it's like this pressure of like, well, now I don't want to be like, that's just my thing either. Like I don't see myself as just kind of in this box of creativity where I'm like, I'm just the Warzone Awards guy. Like I like doing a lot of other things creatively as well that I want to. Sorry, you might hear my cat getting fed. Very
No worries.
very important moment that distracted me there. Yeah, so for me it was kind of a little bit of that, where it was like, you know, this is out of my own time and energy and whatnot. And I just knew eventually it was going to end. And since I feel like in Warzone Awards 5, like I said, like I feel like I put everything I've always wanted to do with it, from the very more so the second one, wanting like what I wanted to do in terms of having it almost be like a Game Awards or a Oscars or whatever, that those kind of big award shows, but wanted to show that like, hey, I could do this in house, just a no name guy, to say, hey, I have these
Yeah,
skills, and yeah, maybe some stuff could have been better, like I said, but I, I put the time and
you did
effort in
it.
to kind of prove myself, prove
Hmm.
to my own self too. But yeah, I think that little bit of that pressure of like, yeah, I can't do this forever, and it is a lot of time, a lot of energy, and I think I just need to explore other things. And if anything, I keep saying it, I legitimately mean it, where I want someone else to try take a stab at it. I would love to see someone else take it in a direction, that I can't think of, or someone else, can really think outside the box for it. Because it's, to
Sure.
me, it's about the community on the end of the day. Like,
Mm.
so I feel like that opportunity is there. But yeah, it's a lot of work, and
Yeah.
um, I get it at the same time. Like, you're basically doing it for the community and whatnot. But 5 years is still a long time. There's definitely days where I've thought about, I'm like, man, should that have been the last one? I'm like, no, it is. Like, it just felt like going into it, I'm like, nah, I'm going to put 110% into this. I'm going to put everything I have into this in terms of, the script, the visuals, the story to it, right? The music, everything, so.
And I just
yeah.
wanted to ask because, as a creative person and having this podcast and seasons, I don't necessarily think there was pressure behind it, but, there's some expectation maybe from people that listen, what's going on. But at the same time, I wanted to just let you know if you did feel that pressure, like I think everybody can appreciate the work that you put into the community, and whatever step you wanted to take to come back into Warzone, I think would be appreciated, whether it be the awards or not. So I wanted to sort of take on and say, hey, you shouldn't feel that way. If you do, I think Warzone really cares about you as a part of the community and is thankful for all the work you've put into it. And I think in some ways, it continues on in the forums in its own way because of you, right? People have now wanted to fulfill that in their own way, and maybe it will get back to the level. I don't know if anybody can top your shows, honestly.
You never know. I mean, I don't remember where I said it. It might have been a stream or whatnot, but I've told people it's like, because I'm also the age, like I said, I'm 29 years old. 30 is coming quick, and I know 30 isn't that old. But in terms of just like life responsibilities, only get more and more. But to me, there's folks like you and whatnot who can be, to me, like this, next generation, so to speak, of creative people. And I think that, to me, I guess if there's any like pressure, I would just say, like, I think it's on the community to either create those folks and support those folks, or find more folks and whatnot. Because there's definitely, like, there was an era where it was me, Ethan, Troldemort was another. Still talk to him, and us three, I remember at the time, was like kind of the people who would be constantly streaming Warzone. I mean, like on a weekly to monthly basis, right? And there's other people I'm missing who came in too, but like this was like 2017, 2018, like we were, constantly on there. And then Warzone Awards was just kind of like a bigger version, I feel like, of that kind of the Twitch side of Warzone. So I feel like for me, it's like, I hope that, there is that next, creative aspect of the Warzone Awards that can come out. Cause, I do believe in that kind of, it's no different than you seeing like all different types of art, whether it's music, or movies, right? Where you have like, okay, there's these directors from this era of movies, and there's this new, what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to compare myself to Steven Spielberg.
No,
here, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
where
I think it's a good
level.
Point. I don't know if anybody will ever have Karolanka on their show, though.
Yeah, shout out to Karolanka, man.
I know, holy cow! And this is I have to tell this story because it's okay. Sort of like come back to me. And you talk about how Fizzer put Warzone back on, the live, and I'm almost positive I was one of the people that saw that. I was like, Warzone Awards, so I clicked on it, or pressed it on my phone. I don't remember, and I am almost positive that Karolanka was playing Monarchy at that moment, and I was like, what is going on? I was like, this is insane. It's like a halftime show, and they have an actual rapper group for a Warzone. I was like, this is so cool. And I don't know if anybody's going to top that, to be honest, Cursona.
Well, that was because I embarrassed myself the year prior, and I'm like, I need an actual musical performance here that isn't just, because I think the first three were all just gags, mostly. Where I'm like, how can I make this funny, but also give people, maybe if there is a legitimate, someone who's like, I don't want to miss something, I have to go use the bathroom, get a snack, whatever, they can do that. But also reward the people who are sitting there and watching. But yeah, I mean, I'm friends with Karolanka, and at the time they were doing some Twitch stuff too. doing some like 24-hour EPs where they make an EP in 24 hours. And
wow,
that's kind of how I found them and got to know them. And yeah, I was like, let me ask them. I mean, like, because they're, like I said, I was friends with them and whatnot. I'm like, let me hit them up. Let me see if they'd be interested in it. I know it's crazy. I know it's a weird, like, random platform.
right?
Trying to explain Warzone to them, just like that's what I was so worried about. But like,
Sure,
there was a right away a resounding yes, let's do it. Cool. Hell yeah,
that's awesome.
Then the second time, we both immediately were like, oh, you want to do it again? Because everyone loved you the first time. Yeah, it just worked out. But yeah, shout out to Karolanka, man. Like, they're I can't believe that was definitely like, how did this happen? Like,
yeah, it was a moment, man, for real.
I think that was another big surprise for a lot of people, because I think if anyone watched the previous ones, they're like, okay, here's whatever it's going to be. And it's like, no, here we go. We got an actual group who's promoting their current, EP at the time.
Yeah.
To do an actual video performance. And I think this once again falls into like that pandemic, kind of early pandemic era of where it was like, I think if it wasn't the pandemic, it'd be a lot different of how these awards would have maybe turned out. But so yeah, the cards fell in a nice spot for that. But yeah, shout out to Karolanka. I'm glad that was your first experience. That's pretty awesome.
That's why I had to share. I was like, that was a pretty awesome moment. Just kind of thinking back on it too. It's interesting, right? I mean, it's such a great example of content creators coming together. And, you even mentioned it. You're a little nervous maybe sometimes reaching out to other creators to collaborate and do things with, because everybody's got their niche, right? And I just think it's a great example of, as creators, we can't be afraid to reach out and collaborate with other people and think that, either you're insignificant or you can't, get in front of them or explain your niche to them. Don't be afraid they are in the same type of place or were in the same type of place as you are. And that's such a great example of that, right? You guys came together on something completely separate, and now you did something together.
I think it's definitely, a I guess lesson for, like, once again, if anyone who's creative out there who hasn't maybe done a project yet or done something they wanted to do but maybe just haven't took that step, or like you said, you've been doing something but you really want to like work with somebody, the worst is going to say is no. But like, I'm not saying like I've reached out to so many people, but like there's been like, I think the biggest example is like Karolanka, but there's been other times where it's you don't think sometimes it would work, and then it winds up working out. And sometimes those two, like, maybe two different ideas like work brilliantly. I think it worked out actually like perfectly. Like at first I was like, maybe this would they be interested, right? And then it's like, okay, they are, but how is this gonna like work? Will it be too abrasive? What does it look like? But it sometimes you don't know until you try. So like, and I will always even if people don't like it, like I will always respect it though if people go outside their comfort zone in any capacity creatively, you know what I mean? And there's definitely some of that in the old Warzone Awards, where I tried it, you know what I mean? And if it sucks, or even if I find out later on, I'm like, I actually didn't like that, you learn from it and you only get better. So, that's human, the human experience, right? Where you're going to grow, you got to grow over time. If you're not, I guess ignorance is bliss, I guess. I don't know. But I really do believe in just growth, as a human being, especially for me, who, I try to be very creative and tap into that. And I will always try things. Even if it fails, it fails. If not, you might get Warzone Awards out of it. So
that's awesome. Well, I always, I always think, like, with people that I have on this show, I always try and wrap up. And, the more I do these interviews, the I feel like the more awkward this question gets because everybody knows it's coming. But it's like, what about Warzone has stood out to you is always kind of what I ask, but I kind of want to change it and ask, is there anything that you maybe ever wanted to say to the Warzone community, or maybe something you wanted to say to a player that you just never did, or something you just want to get out for people to hear in Warzone or about Warzone?
Man, that is a tough question. I mean, I think it just I keep going back to just he's saying thanks for giving me the platform to do some of the most creatively fulfilling but also creatively difficult projects with the Warzone Awards, or even just when I was just starting off streaming. Warzone was the first thing I really started streaming with. It did help that you got free publicity at the top of the top of the Warzone page, but it was really the first thing I tried, and I remember I had a friend of mine who knew that I wanted to do something creatively, whether it was on Twitch, or because I used to edit YouTube videos all the time, but I always wanted to try Twitch, but it was more of a comfortability thing. My one friend said, "You got to try it," and I went to Warzone because I knew that I was going to at least get meet some people through that, or I already knew some people through that, and is more of a comfortable space in that way. So I guess my thing is, I guess I'll just keep echoing what I've been saying kind of this whole episode here, and then what I've said at end of Warzone Awards is like it. I mean, I can't really describe the feeling, but it's a very thankful feeling of I wouldn't put all that effort into something if no one cared, and if there wasn't it's really the nominees, right, who helped make the award. If there's no nominees, there's no awards, there's nothing to actually work with. So there's so many people who are involved in whether ways they didn't even realize that helped make it possible. So yeah, anyone who's even just watched 20 minutes of the Warzone Awards means a lot. So yeah, I feel like it's just a word of thanks and appreciation.
I love it. And now obviously you've continued on and you're still doing live streaming. I want to give you this opportunity to plug any of the stuff that you're doing now. Obviously you've done a lot of stuff with your longtime friends in Absolutely Ethan, who is still everyone. I still see him out making maps. But anything else that you want to let people know where to find you?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, kind of the top, kind of taking a step back, but I still do stuff online, maybe just not as schedule heavy, but probably the best spot you can find me most consistently on at this point would be the Sonic Movie Show. If you look that up, hopefully it pops up on YouTube. Sometimes the Sonic movie itself pops up, so maybe we need to think about rebranding one day. But Sonic Movie Shows with Ethan and I, and we've been doing that for 4 or 5 years now. And we do we've been actually streaming on there more recently together, so we're trying that out, see how that goes. But we also have a podcast that you can look up on any of your podcast services, and we do gaming, we do kind of more just general internet topics, and we also review video game movies that you've never heard of. That's probably one of my favorite projects on there. Then I do Twitch streaming here and there. Most of the time it's just CSGO or CS2, sorry, on twitch.tv/CursonaFun. But I've been doing here and there. I do some political stuff, talking about comfortability. I'm comfortable with the subject, but I'm still learning of how I want to talk about it, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
So if you're into politics, going to be doing this is talking about events. You like Warzone Awards? Well, you want to tune in on November 5th at some time, because I'm going to be doing a big U.S. election stream with my brother, and we're going to be doing like fantasy football electoral college.
Nice.
And we have bets that we're still working on. It's going to be fun. We're also going to raise money
cool.
for like Palestine and stuff. So I think it's going to be a whole thing. Still working out the kinks on that. But yeah, I'll be on twitch.tv/CursonaFun at some point.
continuing
really
on with the events. I love it.
I love events.
You do.
I should have led with that from the very beginning. I love events. I love the spectacle.
It's great.
I like that stuff.
And I think that's what's so cool. Warzone has really, pulled that part out of you in a way, in that you've identified with that. You gravitated to something. You've grown creatively, and we were all and continue to be a part of it, and want to see you succeed. So thank you so much for what you've done for Warzone, and thank you so much for being on the podcast.
I appreciate it. And shout out to all those who listen to this podcast. Keep supporting Jack here, and I think it's cool because no one was doing a podcast, that I can think of. So keep it going.
Thank you. Yes, thank you everybody that's listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.
See ya.